Miss me? It's been a while. It has been a time. It has been a time of times and getting through it. Transversing the plains of life, like I like to call it. Never called it that before a day in my life, but I'm calling it now because that's a good explanation of what I've been going through. But I'm back. I'm back talking about movies. I've been watching a lot of movies, of course, as one does. Um, but today, um, I kind of have a little bit of a sad one. Um, don't want anyone to worry about me because it gets a little bit sad. It gets a little bit nitty gritty. Um, but you know what? It's films. It's life. Um, so let's get into it. So masculinity is a topic that I almost did my master's thesis on. Ended up doing this research project anyway, though, like, it needed to be done, whatever. But masculinity, I find especially modern masculinity to be a pet topic of mine. No, I didn't actually try to take a class. There was a class at the local community college that like I signed up for, and the professor canceled it because he was like, "You're the only person that signed up for it." And I was like, "Can we just do it anyway? Like just you and I?" And he never responded and canceled the class. But probably he's a bit of a weirdo, but he was teaching the class, so like fuck him. But modern masculinity I find to be really like a pet topic of mine, because it's especially like interesting to me because of how wonderfully explored it is in cinema. Because with modern femininity, I feel like I don't have much connection to it, or not the same connection that men have to their masculinity, right? Like I feel like I can kind of do anything without, anyone giving much of a fuck about it. Especially nowadays, And even when I was in school, like, yeah, sure, I got made fun of, like verbally made fun of for being like a tomboy or whatever, and dressing like a guy, whatever, I was doing. Um, but I felt like boys in that same situation, right? It wasn't just verbal bullying. It's like they got beat the fuck up for it, and they got super ostracized. And, um, it's like, yeah, of course, like I had like punk rock in my heart. So I was always kind of a little bit like expecting, like, I kind of like the fuck yous. But at least, it's like I never had to go through that. And I feel like, like that's where the difference kind of synthesized for me between like my connection to modern femininity and men's connection to masculinity. And I feel like that's always created like this kind of interest in me. Because it's like when you're punk, when you're kind of like, made fun of in school, it's like you find the other weirdos and the other people that are like comfortable expressing themselves at such an early age. Um, and that it's like I always saw the boys going through it just so much differently, and, it kind of creating this interest in me and, and so I always kind of, carry that with me, and thankfully, being a total cinema head, it was like, yeah, this is a topic that is widely discussed. Um, so it's like I feel like even with the generation, even with my generation of men, things still follow a certain binary, right? Like might be kind of different for Gen Z. We'll see with Gen Alpha, but the times that I've worked with them, it's like I don't know if it's fully bred out yet. And I feel like, there's these expectations that are placed on men via masculinity that I think become very murky in the modern era. And I feel like it's like when I watched The Surfer that came out this year, which is it's excellent. I highly recommend. I was probably like the only person that saw it in the theater, but I was looking forward to it. And it cannot be hyped enough. But there's this wonderful, very transgressive, but wonderful monologue by the late Julian McMahon, rest his soul, rest in peace. He's fantastic in that movie. Um, and there's this great monologue that kind of goes into that. So it's like I highly recommend watch that motherfucking movie. Watch that monologue. But it kind of distills like the expectations into this very transgressive philosophy, but one like the audience can't really refute, right? The more you listen to them, the more you're like drawn in. Because it's like, yeah, they want to neuter you, but they still expect you to walk around with dick swinging, like, and I think that men most take women's concerns to heart. Like, they just become afraid to interact and they become like, they paralyze themselves to the friend zone. Whereas, like, any woman knows, like, any guy that's actually the guy we're concerned about is still just doing these things, because they're still a creep and they're not listening to it. And all the sweet men who are listening to it, it's just like they're like paralyzing themselves into, like non interaction. Um, However, the two that I have for you tonight are about the flip side of why there are concerns and there are rules and there are reasons to be afraid of men. um, some of these I deal with on a daily basis. And whereas, like, I know from experience the way that, women and expectations are kind of in a constant pressure cooker, I think in today's day and age, like, we can forget so are men. This toxicity in cinema is intertwined like surrealism and Dali, Cubism, Picasso, Impressionism, and Van Gogh. It makes for so many beautiful thematic avenues. Masochism or sadism. Which way, Western man? Progress may feel like a leash when accountability has been non existent. But nonetheless, this isn't individual men's fault. Generations of men have been taught to do one thing, now scolded and shamed to do another. Moving forward is necessary. But as much as people don't want to admit it, it does come at what feels like an expense. In reality, sexism hurts everyone, but also works in our favor in different respects. Like, on the women's side, I never have to pay for a date. I don't have to get drafted if there's a war. If something heavy needs to be lifted, I don't have to do shit. I can tell people when I'm feeling scared or I'm uncomfortable or when I'm feeling much of anything. I don't have to get anxious that, like, everyone's going to lose respect for me. I could even be unemployed and men would line up to be a sugar daddy, a willing sugar daddy to take care of you financially. And I feel like the incessant hounding, the shaming, the blaming, the disappointment of not being able to meet what we still deem a worthy man creates isolation and a violent undercurrent, much like the waves during tumultuous weather. Not that we shouldn't move forward, not that things shouldn't and don't need to change, but caging an animal, frauding it in its prison, only perpetuates more anger, more frustration, more chance that it's going to lash out and become the predator that we've labeled it. In this vein, I have for you tonight Nitram that came out in 2021 with Bring Them Down that came out in 2024. Now, I love Justin Kurtzel, which I hope that's how you pronounce his name. I've only read it, never heard it said, but that's what we're calling him tonight. His feel bad vibes are like a warm bed on a rainy evening. Everything down to his landscapes are violent. And I believe deeply that Australians are all a little psychotic. I think the heat, the harsh environment, death around every corner from the most wretched creatures, it just gets into the blood, and the insanity is just passed down, even if you never step foot on the motherland. It's the hellmouth of the world, and I deeply respect anyone for living among it or making it out with their life. And his films reflect this. Now, Nitram is based on a true story. It even starts off with the real boy, real footage of the real boy, badly burned from fireworks in the burned unit, and he's getting this interview. And through this interview of his agony, the interviewer asks, now, son, are you going to play with fireworks ever again? Thinking, like, yeah, it's going to make an excellent PSA for children to be afraid of playing with fire. And instead, the boy smiles directly into the camera and goes, "Yeah, I will." Oh. He's like the little boy and We Need to Talk About Kevin, which also would have made a great double feature with this. His checked out parents have no idea what to do with him, especially when he grows up to be a man. His mom tries to berate and degrade him into behaving himself, and his dad's idea is, well, I'm going to buy this bed and breakfast and I'm going to put his ass to work. Like a real man, he just needs a job. But when his dad gets outbid on the bed and breakfast, he cries and whines and doesn't do a damn thing, but just sits on the damn couch, utterly despondent. But avoidance just allows this issue to fester. In this case, it becomes an abscess. Nitram eventually he meets this equally eccentric heiress, and they form this really bizarre bond. She buys him things in this very like asexual sugar mama Harold and Maude, type situation. And she buys him this car, like this really expensive car, but he has this habit of just wanting to drive it off the road, just grabbing the wheel and just swerving it off the road. And eventually, of course, this all comes crashing down at a tragic end. He becomes bored, he finds obsession with guns, and it results in a massacre. And we all know what's coming, which is just the worst part about it. And we don't actually see the massacre, which I think is great. We just see the setup as the movie ends. But I knew that this was based on a mass shooter, so I knew the dark, despondent trail that this was descending. And each step of the way, each time like, displays this psychotic behavior, it's either ignored or it's punished. And the undercurrent just starts building with intensity until it becomes so powerless that it becomes powerless to stop. And it's a haunting movie. And this is Snowtown, the Snowtown murders, as it's known in the States. But I'll say Snowtown. So this and Snowtown are movies that I just kind of really don't want to revisit. I recommend them endlessly. But it's one of those one and done type of things, which I think is like a true testament to their strength and Kurtz's ability. These movies just really shake me down to my core. And I have a deep appreciation, but not affection for them. Similar to The Wilderness, may be beautiful, yet it requires a very cautious approach. And you know what? To be honest, I prefer to keep my distance. Which brings me to Bring Them Down. The Irish Justin Kurtzel. This is my first introduction to Chris Andrews, and my first impression is that he might become a new fave. This movie is deliciously pitch black. In many ways, Michael, our main character's life, reflects my own. He's always tending after everyone else. Where we differ is mine doesn't boil over into homicidal rage. And his dad is very similar to the care that I give my aging bulldog, Bugley. He's just as full of piss and vinegar. Even though his knees are prone to giving out, he's still demanding and grumpy as ever. And we both have a career in tending to our flock. Their problems, ours. Sometimes in our businesses, well, people die. Sometimes by their own doing. People get stuck, similar to sheep, and you carry them on your back to safety, hoping for the best, but preparing for the inevitability that they wander right back in. Each walk stoically hoping for some simple reflection with each desperate plea for help. Even through even though, the job might be over for the day, their lives go on. So helpless, their survival can sometimes feel like it's hinging entirely on you. Which is a little hyperbolic, but I resonated deeply with this movie. My success revolves around the success of my flock. There's no day that I only worry about providing for myself. The issues never cease, they never fully reach resolution. There's no finished project at the end of this, you know? So he's living in this nebulous area of getting through one day to the next. And it's easy. It's easy to miss the beauty surrounding you when things are such a slog. Even stopping for a quick Wonder Bread sandwich with your dog, the only reprieve you might get for days, is met with a disaster on the other side. Like a punishment for taking a second to just enjoy a small moment. How does one expect Michael not to externalize the exact sentiment that life seems to have for him? I'm coming across Barry Kay, this little bad to the bone little boy, for no regard for anyone outside of himself, is where things take a sick turn. It's that acid rising in my stomach feeling that Kurtzel gives me. I suppose Barry Kay ultimately gets a similar feeling from his actions, but there's just things that may have a reasonable explanation but can't be justified. Michael has a similar moment right in the beginning of the film. There's just some things a decent person just doesn't do. You may go through the motions after that, but your humanity remains only as barely embering coals. For a movie I thought was just going to be a family feud, I was really thrilled to feel so glum. Did Michael have a soul? Do animals experience joy? Or do they simply exist? Like penguins braving the march through the Antarctic weather. Do you ever just stop and ask why when watching a nature show? What meaning does each day have that is fully consumed with survival? Maybe don't have the egg and simply swim around and gorge on fish all winter. Eventually, these penguins become so infirmed they simply can't move any longer. They finally just lay down and die. Is survival a choice? Is having a soul? Michael chose to align with the animal he viewed himself as, but parts of humanity still peered through. He shows kindness in the darkest moments, something an animal has no capacity for, which, as the character so aptly recognizes in the film, actually makes him much more terrifying than a simple rabid beast. Will Barry Kay ever get to his dream destination? Even after what he's done, it's hard not to root for someone to leave behind the misery of existence and really embrace what separates us from the animals. But humans always complicate things, don't we? Why do we make it so damn hard on ourselves to experience the true nature of life? The Irish countryside as a sheep farmer should be the simplest being possible, relishing the beauty of how things are supposed to be. However, Andrews cautions us the sun may burn bright and illuminate the exquisiteness in our world, but it cannot always be day. Every place the light touches can't escape the darkness. And so there it is. Danger, violence, duty. What does it mean to be human? There's so many rules for it. Why do these form? Why do they persist even at our own expense? Are we just as stupid as the penguins in the Antarctic, marching along simply to suffer? Do we need to propagate? Why are we so compelled for existence to stretch out into the furthest eternity? Why is change or a different path so hard? Survival, sure, it can be exceptional, but that doesn't always mean it's a good thing. I see the world getting back to its most base, nipping the neck of each other for getting out of line, retaliating with physical brutishness, resulting in a dogfight. Who wins? Is there victory for any side? Or is isolation the only form of coexistence? Deconstruct what it means to be human. Is there anything left that is a salvageable compromise? Or are we just stuck in a demolition derby? All I can say is, I'm thankful for movies and for this pretty much anonymous space to express myself. And I suppose suffering is also the insight needed for bliss. And I guess that's the best I got. Let's have a terrible time checking these two out. And if we don't destroy ourselves in the meantime, I'll see you in the next one.